Jules, I'm an alcoholic. So, to start from the beginning, I was born in Great Falls, Montana. I don't have a lot of memories from when I was really little. I, but I know like what happened in like a time frame situation. I know that my parents were together long enough to have me, and they separated when I think after 2 years. And then I was mostly raised by my mom. Um, I didn't really know as a kid why I couldn't see my dad. Um, she just said that they separated because they're better off as friends. But as I got older, I realized like I can't be with him alone. And I started to be able to see him more and more, but I realized that it was because of his alcoholism. Um, so yeah, it would go from like not seeing him at all, and then when I was around like 8, like once a month, every 2 weeks to every weekend. And when I did go over there, um, he was usually like asleep, and I thought he just didn't really want to be around me, but I think he was struggling with how to stay sober at that time. Um, So I would just kind of like indulge in like food and TV, and I was feeling like really isolated when I was over there. And eventually, my mom couldn't just support like my sister and I by herself. So we lived with my grandparents, and that was kind of like a polar opposite lifestyle. They lived out of town, and they're very religious, and it was kind of like there wasn't any chaos, there wasn't any alcohol, but it still felt really unstable because I was going from house to house, and they were foster parents, so there was a lot of kids in and out. Um, but yeah, as a kid, I felt really alone out there too. I didn't have friends to come out and see me. And then when I was at the other house, I was just kind of like in my room. So I didn't talk very much. Um, and then yeah, I feel like I got it in my head that like every other kid had something that I don't have. And one of those things was like family that like drinks normally. I like, I really wanted my family to drink. Like, even my dad, I was like, I want him to drink just like normally. And I want my mom to drink too. And I want my grandparents to. And none of them did. They actually like talked really badly about alcohol. And when there were people on my mom's side that drank, they would kind of shut them out and talk badly about them to me. Um, but yeah, I was kind of convinced, I convinced myself as a kid I was being deprived of alcohol before I could even drink. Um, and the first time that I drank, I think I was like 12 or 13, and I had my first little job, and I was like dog house sitting for one of my mom's friends. And I went down to the basement, and there was just like alcohol on the walls, and um I was so excited, and I was like, if I take like a sip of every single one of these, they won't notice. And so I did that, and I ended up like I went on like Facebook like as a kid. I think I like um ended up like chatting with friends and inviting them over to this house. And it's just funny because I was so little at that age. But yeah, and so I ended up blacking out because I was like I had my friends drink too. And the next day I woke up, and I was like I was so scared, and I was like I'm gonna turn out just like my dad. Um, I'm not gonna have a family. I'm gonna be isolated in my house and just be like sleeping all the time. And so after that happened, I was like, I'm not gonna drink. I'm gonna like make this pact to myself and to my dad that like without him knowing, um, that I'm not gonna drink until I'm like 21 or 22. And so instead I just ended up doing drugs and like yeah, I don't know. So I started like out smoking weed when I was around that age, and I was like, this isn't really a bad thing. But the way I was doing it, I was revolving everything around um being high all the time. It was like before school, during school, after school, I like made a friend where his mom just didn't care if we all came over and smoked at her house. And sometimes she would like give us she would give us like tea that had like weed in it. And like she would make us toast that was made with like weed butter. And I thought she was so cool. And he had dreads and he would like hide weed in his dreads. And I was like, this is amazing. Like these people are so cool. And then I just started like experimenting with every drug, like not every drug, but um I was doing 2CP a lot, which is kind of like an intense drug. And anytime anyone offered me something, like I would take it without even asking what it was or what it would do. And I remember one time like a friend picked me up and I ended up smoking meth and I didn't even question it. Like I was like, whatever this is, like I trust you. And it looked really sketchy too, but I was like, it's fine. And yeah, I mean, this is like a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I feel like it kind of like shows like how my brain works and how I feel like I need these substances to do everything. And until AA, I didn't realize that there was like that me taking any drugs was bad. And then after I got in the program, I was like, well, like when I was 16, I like totaled my car while I was high. I was like, that might be connected. And like getting arrested at that age too, when I was really high, I was like, that might be, but I wasn't really convinced. And so yeah, AA helped me see what was actually going on, like in reality, and instead of like this like skewed thinking that I have, like kind of like defending like drugs and alcohol. Um, and yeah, so then I started drinking again, like in high school, towards the end, and I would black out every time. And I remember I have an older sister, and I would ask her to hang out just so she could buy me alcohol. And I was really taking advantage of her. I would ask if she could meet up and then right away ask to go to like the gas station or wherever. And then after she would give me that, I would want to leave and I wouldn't want to be around her. And she ended up not talking to me for like over a year. And I definitely thought she was the problem. Like I was like, I feel like this is what every older sibling should do. But so yeah, but the like frequency of it, I feel like it was every single time I saw her. Um, and then at 18, I moved to Missoula and I started drinking more. I was I went here for school and my first year I was like failing a lot of classes because I was like drinking all the time. Um, and then I had a few friends that like told me that they were like worried about my drinking, but at that point I was 18, so I was like, I'm not even legal, so this doesn't really count. And I also thought they were being really dramatic because they like got all together to like talk to me about it. I was like, this is too much. But um yeah, so Then I think yeah, when I was 18, I ended up moving out of the dorms. And before that, actually, I like knew that when you were in like a sorority or a frat, you could drink a lot, but I didn't want to join a sorority. So I would just like date people in the frat as like a way where I would always have alcohol and like during the week too, and I could just like go over there whenever. Um, and then yeah, I moved out of the dorms and I met like three people that were like at least like 10, 15 years older than me, and they were all alcoholics, and I was like, this is perfect. Um, and so they would always like provide alcohol for me and they would drink like during the week, and I was like, this is like what being an adult is. Like all of my friends are just really immature and young and um yeah, I feel like it was definitely like this exchange where I like didn't even really want to be around them, but I felt like if I had a conversation with them and acted like I wanted to be around them, then they would like give me alcohol in return, which is really like manipulative, but um yeah, so I was doing that and then I had a lot of fake IDs. I would ask my friends that were older than me if I could have their ID if they looked like me, and then they would just like order a different ID for themselves. And I feel like it worked pretty well. But was kicked out of bars. Like I could get in underage, but like from my drinking, I had to leave. And um, when I was like, I think I was like 19, I met someone that I liked, and um, after like a week of knowing me, he was like, I can't be with someone that drinks like you. And yeah, I was really hurt because I was like, I don't want to stop drinking. And I was really resistant to anyone that's told me to stop drinking. But I also knew like how it was affecting my life. And so I tried to sober up for like a month. I just like wouldn't go out with friends. I like avoided a lot of friends. I just stayed in and then I came back to him and I was like, I don't drink anymore. And it and then he was like, "Okay, this is good." And so we ended up dating, but I feel like over time he was just like in my head I was like, "You're just trying to keep me from alcohol and you're trying to control me." And I think he just wanted me to be safe. And so when he wasn't around, I would drink. And then when he was around, I just knew that I couldn't because I knew how I was with alcohol. And um eventually like towards the end because we ended up living together and I just felt like it was like a buildup where he was always there. And I mean, he was just living, he was just like doing his thing, but in my head I was like, this is really annoying that I can't drink because you're here. And so towards the end I was just kind of like, I was like, fuck it, I don't really care. And so I would just like go out with friends, come back or don't come back. Um, and yeah, I feel like we ended up like ending things and I just had no like I'm a very emotional person. Like I feel like I cry like multiple times a week and I like couldn't get myself to cry. And um I was mostly like happy that I could finally drink again. And I know that it bothered me like when you're with someone and you think that's like the person you're gonna end up with. But um yeah, I just like I couldn't feel it at all. And so yeah, that was when my drinking kind of spiraled because I feel like yeah, it was that buildup of not being able to and then finally being able to freely. And so yeah, I started drinking every day. By this time I graduated. Um, and I feel like I was kind of ruining things in Missoula with my drinking. Some people really didn't want to be around me. And so I left Missoula. I was like, if I leave for a little while and come back, like people won't remember everything. And so I went to Phillipsburg like a very small town with a lot of drinking. And I went there for a artist in residency, and they like it was like a perfect situation where like they had a place for me to stay. All I needed to do was like make art inspired by that place. And I didn't do that at all. Like the first day that I was there, I went to the White Front and um just like early in the day, and I just ended up blacking out. And yeah, I continued that for the rest of the summer. I just was drinking a lot, and I only wanted to be around like people that did drink. And I ended up like meeting someone. Like at that point I was like and like constantly in a relationship with someone, but they needed to be an alcoholic, and they needed to be an alcoholic so they wouldn't judge me and they would drink with me. But they also needed to be like pretty well off in life so they could get the alcohol for both of us. And it was definitely like I thought it was great, and I thought I had full control over this situation, but it wasn't like that at all. It's like definitely reversed. Um and yeah, I remember like the person that I was dating, like we didn't spend one day sober. And um and we both would just like drink right when we woke up. And I remember one day we were like, let's just try not to drink for one day. And we went to the hot springs, and I remember both of us were like miserable. Like we didn't even talk to each other. And I felt like we had so much fun when we were drinking, but yeah, I was like, I don't even know this person sober. Like, this is weird. Like, it's like I never met you before. And so it was just, yeah, that day we ended up drinking anyway. We lasted like a few hours, and then left the hot springs right away, went to go drink. And um yeah, I was like, I definitely need to end this because like he's the reason why I'm drinking. That's like what I told my friends. I was like, I will stop drinking once I'm done dating him. And I did that. I ended it. And I remember that day I told my friend, I was like, well, we need to go out for drinks because like I just did this, and like I'm sad about it. But I wasn't really. And yeah, my really close friend, it was the first person that I met in Missoula. So she's like full through this story. Like she's like living with me the entire time. Um and not a drinker at all. And it was definitely like this like me needing like this rescuer, and her wanting to rescue me, and I feel like that was kind of like the basis of our friendship. Um and I kind of knew that like whatever shit I put myself in, like she was able to fix it. Um yeah, and it just like wasn't fair for me to put her in a lot of positions. But um so then I moved back to Missoula, and I got a job. And I remember I couldn't go to work without being drunk. It was like a job where there's no alcohol whatsoever. Um, it was like at a bead shop, like you're supposed to like make jewelry, and so it was really chill, and it wasn't around any alcohol. But I was like, I need to drink for this job. And um so I would drink before I got to work and fill up my water bottle with alcohol. And I remember like one day I like kept going back to my car to just like continue to fill it up. And I ended up like blacking out at work, and my boss found out. Um and yeah, I feel like that was kind of when it like after that point it just like didn't stop. It was like that daily. And um I ended up having a doctor's appointment, and I told the doctor that I had a problem drinking. I got drunk before the appointment that morning. And then I was like, I have enough courage to like tell her. And so I told her, I was like, I think I have a drinking problem. And she started talking about like um like a counselor for addiction, and I was like, I don't want that. Like I just wanted to tell you I don't want any like solution to it. Um and she was like, you talked about like medications that you can take to make yourself sick when you drink, but she just straight up told me, she's like, I know you aren't going to take the medications, you're just going to keep drinking. um and so I told her, and we didn't really have like a plan figured out from there because I was like, I don't want to like go to a counselor for this, and we'll just like recoup in a few months and we'll be fine. And then right after that appointment, I was I went over to Owls and Vicks because they were open. They were open pretty early. And I ended up drinking more there. And it was kind of to like celebrate that I finally told someone because before that, like I would convince people like I wasn't at all. Like I was really defensive about it. And so for me that was big to tell someone. And so I ended up going to the bar and drinking, and somehow like I don't really remember much from this day, but the lady wouldn't serve me anymore. I ended up like going outside for a little bit, trying to get back in. Um, and somehow maybe I had like my sister on the phone or something, but she talked to my sister. My sister ordered me an Uber, and I like she doesn't live in Missoula, and so I think she didn't realize like how like bad my drinking had gotten because I wouldn't go home very often. Um, but yeah, I ended up getting an Uber back to my house, drinking all my roommates' alcohol, which they would like hide in their room. And um and it was also like this repetitive thing where it was like I would find their alcohol that they would hide from me and then drink it all and then get more alcohol to replace that, but then drink it. And I felt like it was like this like never ending like well of like alcohol. And it was really frustrating to me too because I was like it felt like I just did something and then I had to do it again. And um I went back to the house and drank all their alcohol and would like I passed out, and that's like when like around that time was when my sister reached out, or my best friend reached out to her, and everyone was like talking to each other about my alcoholism. And in my head I felt like they were all ganging up on me, and I felt like I was able to like keep this secret away from my family, and now it was just like out there in the open. And so my aunt lives in Missoula, and she got a hold of two of her friends that are in the program, and I didn't want to do the program. Um, and my mom started calling me every day, and she would call me like right before work, right after work, before I would go to bed. And I remember she would try and like encourage me and be like, you don't need to do this today. And she's like, you just need to go to bed. And right after I would get off the phone with her, I would drink, or I would be like drinking as I was on the phone with her. And I would just like tell her what she wanted to hear. And yeah, so then I I ended up like feeling like I was being watched all the time. And my friend actually like, since it was happening every day, um and I would like almost every time I drank, I would like end up like not even back at my own house. Like I wouldn't remember anything that was going on. And I remember like feeling like really like scared, but if I could have like alcohol as soon as I woke up, like those feelings would just like go away. Um and so yeah, it was just like this like everyday cycle of doing that. And I felt like I couldn't, like, even when really bad things happened, I felt like I couldn't like cry or have any emotion towards it. Like as if like that wasn't really happening to me. Um, which is just like just like the opposite of really like who I am, because I feel I do like I do have a lot of feelings and they're constant. And so, yeah, I felt like alcohol was kind of like this blessing that was able to like make me normal. Um, and yeah, so I was like I had my friend that like took time off work and she was trying to keep me sober for like a week because I was being asked like, when was the last day you didn't drink? And I would lie and I'd be like 5 days ago I didn't drink. But I really like truly couldn't remember. And um yeah, I remember that she ended up leaving the house at one point and I ended up drinking and she came back and she couldn't find any alcohol, but she could tell that I was like a little bit off, so she took my keys and my wallet and I ended up like I don't remember this, but one of my roommates said that he saw me like looking through the couch cushions for change. And so I like found some change apparently to like go to the store, get more alcohol, walk back to the house. And when I came back, like no one was there. I went into like their rooms and got money, and then it just was like this back and forth. Um, and I ended up blacking out and um I had like an attempted suicide and went to the hospital and I was yeah, I remember like the next day I woke up and my aunt was there because she works at the hospital and I wanted to leave. I was like really embarrassed. And I didn't want anyone to know that that happened and she just was like, no, you should stay here because like you're not gonna stop. Like if you leave like today, you're gonna drink again. And so I ended up being there for like I think like a little bit over 2 weeks or so. And um yeah, that was the longest that I was sober and it felt really crazy. Like I had to be on like some medications for that, but um I felt like really proud of myself that I had 2 weeks and they had like this outpatient program and I went to that and I was like I still just had like alcohol in the back of my head where I was like if I go to this outpatient they're having me talk about alcohol which is going to make me want to drink so I shouldn't do it. So I like made up a lie that I was moving to Hawaii and then they were like, okay, I guess we're done. And that didn't happen. And but then I kept on with that lie where I told my doctor that too. I was like, yeah, I'm moving to Hawaii. And so I wouldn't have to see her. And I still was sober at this point. This was like, I don't know, like a day after I got out of the hospital. Um, and then I ended up I had plans to drink. I had multiple plans of where I was going to drink and who I was going to do it with. And I was at work. And one of my coworkers, she was sober. And when I was drinking, I always asked her how she could do it. And she wasn't in the program, but she was like, I ran into one of my friends that's in the program last week. And she was like, would you go to a meeting with me? And I was like, I don't know, I'm kind of busy because I had plans to drink. And then I, she was like, could you do it for me? Like, I want to go to it. And I was like, okay, I'll go. And so I ended up going to a meeting and um, I didn't introduce myself because I was like, I'm here for my friend. It's not me. And um, yeah, everything that people said I could relate to. And I was like, this is like such an amazing feeling. And like I remember like the last few months of my drinking, like I I was so conflicted because I was like I don't want to be drinking anymore, but I can't like see my life without alcohol. Like this is the most important thing to me. And I didn't want the program because I didn't believe it worked even though like my dad was in the program like while I was drinking, I remember him saying like he relapsed and I was like the program doesn't work. And I convinced myself of that. But once I actually got in the rooms, I was like, this is a completely different feeling. And so, yeah, so I got into the program and I got a sponsor and I just like, while like the first few months, I just like avoided anywhere that had alcohol and that definitely helped me. Um, and I think it was like I had like 2.5 years and everything felt like so like bright in the beginning. Like after like 5 months, it felt really bright. I felt very like social. And then there was like a part where it like tapered off and I didn't have that like high that I felt before. And I feel like there was a lot of stuff going on in my life and I wasn't like telling my sponsor about it. And I ended up um I ended up drinking again. And that was, yeah, that was after like 2.5 years of sobriety, or maybe a little longer. And um yeah, I ended up having like an NA drink in the morning, and then I just went to the store and got like the real deal. And um I like I had like a plan of how I was gonna drink it, where I was like, I'm only getting two tall boys so I can have those at home. But it's like right as soon as I got into my car, I just like cracked both of them open and started like chugging them. And then that just continued. And I thought like because of the program and like everything that I knew, that like either this wouldn't happen to me or I'd be able to control my drinking now. And I feel like that was really like naive of me. And I am I felt like a lot of shame about the relapse, and it was for one day, but I'm now at the point where I'm like grateful for it, because when I would hear about relapsing, I was like, I don't understand how that happens. If you already know the program, like how do you go back out? I wouldn't like openly say that, but that was like something that I just like couldn't process. And then like having it happen, I have like an entirely different perspective where I'm like, this could happen to me like any moment, any day. If I'm not like working the program and like being honest with my sponsor, myself, my friends in the program. And yeah, so like the day after relapsing, I reached out to my sponsor and she told me I needed to share in a meeting. And I was like, I was really upset. I was like, I'm not doing that. Like I was so anxious and yeah, just full of shame that I was like, I shouldn't have to do that. Like I should just go to a meeting and listen. And she was like, well, then it sounds like you just want to keep drinking probably. And um I still was like resistant. I was like, I'm not sharing. And I ended up going to a meeting and sharing. And yeah, everyone was really kind to me about it, and gave me advice. And yeah, so now at this point, like I have like 7.5 months or so. And um, yeah, I think it's like my ego that's like talking when I'm feeling bad about it. Like I think that like in some parts I should feel bad so I don't keep doing it, but I think like other ways to not do it is to like remind myself of where I was before and how I felt. Um and yeah, I feel like to go in this like shame spiral isn't really helpful at all. And yeah, so now I'm just working the program. I feel really grateful for all of the people here today, and I'm really like nervous to share usually, but this was good. So thank you guys. That's all I got.